Connor Hughes here with The Athletic's Dan Duggan after the third day of Giants training camp at the Greenbrier in West Virginia with a little SMY YouTube short breaking down the first three practices here of camp, Dan. And I think that the biggest story the first couple days, and it was a regurgitated story again here on day three because he didn't do much, was Malik Neighbors. That avoided the pup list coming down here to West Virginia, took part the first 2 days, was not active at all on day three. That was all part of the plan, though. The Giants stressed that. They're going to work with him, push him through, see what his body can do, pull it back, see how he reacts, then start pushing him again. But early impressions of Neighbors, because, dude, like, aside from Jaxson Dart, this guy is undeniably the most important player on offense.
Yeah, and I think surprise was the first reaction. That first camp, you knew he wasn't on the pup list. You figure, okay, they'll bring him along slowly. He's running drills. He looked as fast and explosive going through the ladders and running routes. I mean, granted, he's not at 100% right now. He doesn't need to be at 100% right now. And a day like today is fine. This is why it was a benefit not putting him on the pup list. If he feels good, he can go do stuff. If he doesn't, he's on the side. But if he's on the pup list, he wouldn't be able to do the stuff he did the first day. So I think everything is going according to plan so far. I wouldn't, there's no alarm bells by missing today. But they're in a good spot so far, and they have such a long runway. That's the beauty of where they're at right now.
Yeah, again, I think after you saw him at LPG's softball game and you saw how he was moving around there, the second surgery, the first surgery, the brace on his knee towards the end of last year, there were also internal pessimism within the Giants about when were they going to see him. Was it October? Was it November? Was it maybe 2 games at the minimum to see him out there doing things? He doesn't have the acceleration that he used to pre-injury. He's still timid at times, I think, on certain cuts, but he is cutting. He is getting down. He's still moving through the ladder better than most receivers we've seen play. And that's a positive for the Giants. I think we're at the point now where if he is not playing in the opener, at least in some capacity, maybe it's a limited workload, 15, 20 plays, but you would think he's going to be out there against the Cowboys almost certainly here, considering barring a setback.
Yeah, well, you got to always have that disclaimer. But no, we're talking 6 weeks, more than 6 weeks to the opener. So what we see now, it's almost, we're not doctors, we're not physical therapists. It seems impossible that he wouldn't be able to progress to the point of being ready for the opener at this stage.
That's the good news. The bad news with the receivers is next to Malik Neighbors because he's not taking part in team drills, which means we've seen a lot of Darnell Mooney, we've seen a lot of Calvin Austin, we've seen a lot of Darius Slayton with the second team. That's where Odell's working and Braxton Berrios and some of the other guys, Malachi Fields. But, dude, I don't think anyone from that group, with the exception of Berrios, who's making a ton of catches in soft spots in the zone against the backups, like there hasn't been that other receiver that makes you think, well, if Neighbors is limited, if Neighbors has to miss a game because something flares up, who's going to be Jaxson Dart's go-to guy that's not Isaiah Likely? I mean, because there's much to be desired from that group right now.
And I think that's why there was so much of a doomsday feeling with Neighbors. When you thought he wasn't going to be ready, some people tried to take solace. Oh, they have other guys. Like, do they? Because, I mean, listen, I wasn't even the biggest Wan'Dale Robinson guy. We can't just hand-wave away a guy with 90 catches, 1,000 yards, was a go-to guy on third downs. They didn't replace him with a player of his caliber, which was fine. He got a ton of money down in Tennessee. But you still have to have people out there who can move the chains and step in if Neighbors wasn't healthy. They don't have that guy. But if he's back, everything just kind of falls into place. Then you can have Darius Slayton go back to being a decent number 2, or it's Darnell Mooney, and then Calvin Austin could be the slot guy that he's not going to produce like Wan'Dale, but he can probably replicate some of what he brought. And with Berrios, we've done this long enough. Veteran slot guys usually eat in camp, especially in the early days. We'll see if he keeps it up. But it definitely he's made a good statement here in the first couple of days.
Yeah, and he's got some special teams value. We'll see if he ends up earning a spot. Now, the one guy we just mentioned him a second ago, while they don't have, I think, a bona fide number 2 receiver, they do have a number 2 guy who seems like he's going to eat up some of that space. They've worked him outside. They've worked him in the slot. They've worked him in inline tight end. And when they've thrown him the ball, I think Likely stood out. He's a big-bodied target. He has reliable hands. Been a nice one-handed grab in 7-on-7 drills on Thursday, right? Today, Friday? Yes, Thursday. All the days are mixing together here in West Virginia. But Likely seems to really carve out a role for himself there as with the second team.
Yeah.
Or sorry, as a number 2.
And that's what was expected. They didn't give this guy $40 million to come in and put up the stats he put up in Baltimore. Like, I don't think he's ever had 500 yards in his career.
No.
You're paying him based on, obviously, what you saw in flashes when Mark Andrews might have been out of the lineup or certain games. You're expecting to see that more consistently now. And so, again, you come in here, Neighbors is going to draw a ton of attention from defenses. There needs to be somebody else. It's not going to be Wan'Dale Robinson. It's going to be Isaiah Likely. It's almost like they switched the small slot receiver for just a big slot receiver. He's going to tight end. He can put his hand in the dirt a little bit. He's going to be your slot receiver.
Jaxson Dart, year 2, I think we saw a pretty good day on the opening day at camp. In fact, it tore up Denard Wilson's defense. It was like, man, we might have an issue there with the secondary and everything else with that defense. But day 2 wasn't particularly great. Abdul Carter ruined a lot of that. Day 3 also not all that great, especially those final 2-minute drive the field drills where they put basically 44 seconds on the field or on the clock, gave the offense the ball around midfield, and told them to get into field goal range. The Giants' offense lasted 3 plays on the first because they took a sack, gained like a 5-yard pass to Tyrone Tracy, then in a pre-snap infraction ran the clock off.
Yeah.
Then the second drive ended with a Darius Alexander interception. So there's early quick thoughts here on Jaxson Dart to start year 2.
Yeah, I mean, that's your point. Definitely looked really sharp day 1, and then the next 2 days have been a step back. I mean, John Harbaugh seemed a little cranky after practice. It might have been based on the way it ended for the first team offense because they kind of couldn't get out of their own way. Obviously, great play by Darius Alexander. You don't want to end a 2-minute drive with a defensive tackle coming up with interception, so not a great play there. Yesterday, same thing. They do these 2-minute drives at the end of every practice. It's a Harbaugh staple, situational football. I mean, every coach does it, but he really leans on it, and they haven't been crisp the last 2 days. Now, again, it's early in camp. Malik Neighbors is not there. We can put all the disclaimers, and it's not like Dart's been bad during camp. But I think, you're just seeing a guy who's in year 2, different offense, ask him to do different things, too. Last year he was basically running the Ole Miss offense. Now he's running an NFL, under center, play action, a lot of different things that he hasn't had to do in the past. So you're going to see some growing pains with that, and I think that's fine because it's not like he's looked overwhelmed but there are going to be some days where it's going to be rougher than others.
Real quick on the defense here, Dan. Abdul Carter, I think, has been the guy who stood out. The secondary, that cornerback 2 situation, Greg Newsom's out. I mean, I know that's what everyone has talked about, with that being one of the bigger positional battles. Joe Shane said that himself, but the safety seemed like it's Holland and it's Newman. Right. And the corner spot's going to work itself out. Right now it's Newsom and Adebo and Drew, and you'll see maybe Tate Banksworth's in there. Right. Colton Hood more likely than that to work in and eventually steal some reps. But Abdul Carter's been the talk of camp the first 3 days. Had 2 sacks on Thursday, another sack on Friday. He said after practice, actually on Friday, that he wants to be Defensive Player of the Year. And while those are lofty expectations, he is looking like a more locked-in player this year, a more active player this year, and a more disruptive player this year, rushing almost exclusively against Andrew Thomas, which is noteworthy.
Right, and that's the thing. Because a lot of times in the past, when a Giants pass rusher had a great camp, you'd say, but who was he going against? Eric Flowers and Matt Parrott and some of the guys, and Nate Solder. Yeah. He's doing it against Andrew Thomas day in and day out. And Andrew Thomas gave him his flowers yesterday. He said, I don't like to lose. It's not like he's out there taking it easy on him. He certainly, he embraces that challenge of going against Carter. Listen, we saw the talent last year at this time, though. The talent has never been in question. It was a lot of the other stuff. And I think the most encouraging thing in camp was what he's done on the field. Because, again, we know about the talent. He said, he finished last year strong, and he learned a lot about his process. And now, obviously, we know the process was pretty flawed last year. Missing meetings, sleeping through meetings, whatever you want to say. He got disciplined a couple times. It took a little while for that message to get through. But now if it has, if you have a locked-in guy who's going to be under the tutelage of Brian Burns, who's another guy who's really talked about how he's honed his process deeper into his career. If Carter can start absorbing that now, I mean, the talent is undeniable. So, I think the Defensive Player of the Year, lofty goal, sure. But, I mean, you can't doubt it just at some point in his career, just based on the talent. If he figures the other stuff out, he absolutely has that type of ceiling.
All right, that's Dan Duggan of The Athletic. I'm Connor Hughes. We'll be back later for more coverage from Giants training camp.